Welcome to Art with Jam. This is the second episode of a 4-episode long series on how to make paper clay flowers. If you didn't watch the first episode, you don't technically have to watch it before you watch this. However, it does have some easier flower designs. The first flower we'll be making today is a rose, but this time it's going to be a frilly rose. You're going to want to make at least 4 balls of clay of the same size. Though the more balls of clay you have, the bigger the rose will be. Once you do this, you're going to stick the balls of clay together to make a cute little caterpillar, and then you're going to crush the caterpillar. Then you're going to roll the rose together. After the second or first turnaround, you're going to want to make the petals kind of start flattening out like an umbrella kind of a shape. And now we just have to wait for the flower to dry, and then we can paint on a few more small details. Now that the rose has dried, we can paint on some smaller details, though they aren't necessary. I'm going to be using watercolor paint because it leaves a very delicate, pretty kind of look on the flowers. Plus my watercolor paint is sparkly. You're going to want to put paint in all the little crevices on the rose. Try to make sure it's blue, though it could be cool if it's in a different color. Lastly, you're going to turn the rose over and paint the bottom of all the petals. I didn't do this in the first video because those were my first flowers, so I didn't know to do that yet. But it looks really pretty when you do that on the bottom of the petals of the flowers. Now we have our first flower, so it's time to work on our second flower and the final flower of this video. For this flower, you're going to need at least 2 colors. Though I suppose you could do it in 1 color. That could also look pretty. You're going to want to make 4 balls of equal size, even though I'm making 5 here. That was a mistake. And then you're going to flatten each one out and connect it together in a curved kind of a shape. Then connect the ends together to make a weird ring. There should be empty space in the center which you could fit your finger in, or you could fit more petals in. You're going to do the same thing, make 4 balls of equal size, but this time they should be slightly smaller. And you're going to put them, and then you're going to flatten each one out, line them up in a curved kind of shape, connect the ends together, and then put it in the center of this flower. You can do those steps over again if you want to add more layers, or you can just take a color and fill it in with a giant blot of clay. I just realized I apparently deleted the footage of making the second layer of petals and stuffing a blob in the center of the flower. The last step for this flower is to take 2 very small pieces of clay, roll them up, flatten them out, and put them together very gently and put them in the very center of the blob of clay in the center of your flower, because that looks pretty. I don't think I've ever seen that in a flower, but I think it just looks pretty. The flower is dry now, so we're now going to paint in some nice, cuter details and such. Make sure to use a color of preferably watercolor paint that's close to the same color as the actual flower. You're going to want to paint inside all the little crevices and on the bottom side of each of the petals. If that's not possible with some of the center layer petals because they're smashed up against the first layer petals, that's okay. You don't have to get there if you can't see there or reach there, because no one will see those details. You're also going to want to paint with yellow, for this instance, around the centerpiece of the flower. And once you've done this, the flower is complete and quite pretty. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please be sure to do everything the cute kitty cat does, and come back next week for the third episode of the paper clay flower tutorials. If you haven't watched the first episode, be sure to check the description for that.